Welcome to Career Tours. This week, interviewing on Zoom, part 1. The questions this cast answers are, what's different about interviewing on Zoom? How should I prepare for interviewing on Zoom? And how should I follow up when I interviewed on Zoom?
Is your team struggling with remote work and communication? Great news. Our newest training, The Effective Remote Manager, covers how your team can increase results and retention remotely. We can help your team increase communication and trust. One virtual delivery with 3 hours of content on how to use the Manager Tools Trinity remotely is available for your group. $7,500 for the group of up to 30, and you can also bundle Roadmap or Enterprise. Contact Maggie at maggie@managertools.com for scheduling options.
So 2020 has been a crash course in working remotely for most of us. We're now 7 months into this weird experiment. And a lot of things in the beginning were, we'll just do this temporarily and it won't last. And we just, we'll just throw things together. And now it seems like, I don't know, there's no end in sight. So more and more people are going to be interviewing and changing jobs. And because that's the way the world goes, the workforce is constantly changing. And more of those people are going to be interviewing on Zoom or one of the other platforms. And we're talking specifically here about interviews where you have an interviewer, so a live person on the other end of video, because there are different variations of this. There are recorded videos, there are videos where you talk to a robot, there's different things. So we're talking about a one-on-one conversation with an interviewer and you're both live and it's synchronous and it's all happening right now. So it's the closest equivalent to an in-person interview, but it's happening over Zoom or one of the other ones. And for most of us, it's the first time we've ever done this. And for most of the interviewers, it's the first time they've ever done this. So don't worry about it too much that, this is my first time and I don't really know how this is going to work. Nor does anybody else. And, we all learnt together. So don't be too worried about it. That said, part of the way you can get over the worry is to do a lot of preparation and to think through what you're going to do. And so we've got 17 pages of show notes. So we've got excruciating detail about how to prepare, what to expect, what to say, what to do, and how to follow up. So we're going to go through the whole process.
You betcha. So our cast today, we're going to start by discussing or talking about doing the usual interview preparation, and then some specific to Zoom or virtual presenting preparation. We're going to discuss preparing an hour before the interview, enthusiastically interviewing, don't panic if things go wrong, and following up in a Zoom interview.
The most important thing you can do to make sure that your interview goes well is to prepare well. And that doesn't change when we go virtual. It doesn't matter if you have a great Zoom connection and you look really good on video if you can't answer the questions.
Yeah, exactly.
The point of an interview is to convince the person that's interviewing you that you can do the job. And in order to do that, you have to be able to answer the questions. And if you're going to answer the questions well, you have to have thought about your experience, the things that you've done, the examples that you're going to give, how you're going to describe those, the different ways you can describe those depending on the way the question is phrased. And you have to have rehearsed the answers as well. And lots of people think that rehearsing the answers makes them sound rehearsed, but they don't sound rehearsed. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the way we describe breaking down your experience, we describe in the interview series with the general store exercise. So if you haven't heard that, go get the interview series. If you're listening in September 2020 and you've lost your job and you need the interview series, we still have a bunch of people who have volunteered to gift that to people. So email us at customerservice@manager-tools.com and we will be able to provide that for you. But basically, the general store exercise works through working through your experience, thinking about it, breaking it down, and then helps you find examples for different kind of questions that you're asked. And when you've done the breakdown and you've practiced the answers, then you're ready for the interview.
Absolutely. So yeah, guys, as Wendy said, you need to have practiced your answers, like to the point where you could pretty much say them in your sleep. And like she just mentioned, people sometimes worry that when they practice, they sound rehearsed, right? They'll sound like they've got this canned, perfect speech that they're just reciting. But guys, it's not true in that there's tension in an interview, right? You're nervous and the questions are asked slightly differently. So you need to adapt. You need to shape your answer. The exact question and the exact answer sounding rehearsed is very uncommon. So we want you to be practicing daily. So if you're a licensee of Manager Tools, you can create, if you're familiar with the interview creation tool, all of our licensees have access to it. You can create for yourself an interview or a set of interview questions about the role in which you're seeking.
Yeah, so the interview creation tool exists for managers.
For hiring, yeah.
For hiring, so that they can go through the process and get some questions to ask their interviewees. But you can use it in reverse. You can put in the things you know about the job that you're going for and get questions that you can then use to practice.
Right. And it forces you to know a lot about the role, right? To understand it, to know deeply or in depth what they are looking for, and then gives you those behavioral interview questions that, let's be honest, you're likely to receive. However, on top of that, we also do want you in your daily practice to additionally practice standard questions. So for example, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your greatest accomplishment. Tell me about your greatest weakness. Tell me about your leadership style. And why do you want this job?
Because those are guaranteed questions.
Yeah, exactly. Those are standard. You'll probably get them.
Yeah. And the greatest accomplishment question is an interesting one because it's often asked multiple times in an interview in different ways. So if somebody says, tell me about a time when you led a team, essentially they're saying, can you tell me your greatest accomplishment when leading a team, right? Because you wouldn't give them anything less than your greatest accomplishment. You wouldn't give them leading a team and I didn't achieve anything. And you wouldn't give them leading a team and it went really badly, unless you've been asked about something that went badly. So you're going to give them your greatest accomplishment in leading a team. So for a project management role, for example, the most important things are delivering a project on time, on budget, on scope. And so you are going to be asked, tell me about your greatest accomplishment, or tell me about a time when you led a project and delivered it on budget. Tell me about a time when you led a project and you delivered it in scope. Tell me about a time when you led a project and delivered it all three, on budget, on time, on scope, right? And essentially there's greatest accomplishment in delivering projects and different aspects of that project. So you're going to be asked that a whole bunch of times. So that's why the analysis and the practice is really important, because most of us, if I just randomly said to Sarah, hey, tell me about your greatest accomplishment in your last job, she could probably pick one, right? Right. Off the top of your head that you could talk about. But if I say something specific, like tell me about a time when you had to manage a budget, then that takes a little bit more thought because, you weren't doing that all the time and you got to find the time you did well at that.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And maybe that's harder. And then if I ask 3 more questions about that job, then the examples get harder and harder because you've used the good ones and now you've got to find another one. And so this preparation allows you to have 10, 15 examples that you can use for various questions, and you don't get stuck when someone says, tell me about a time when.
Exactly. Absolutely. So yeah, guys, there are those standard questions that are common across all roles, as Wendy said. You're going to be asked some of them, if not all of them. So you want to be practicing daily so you can answer all those questions and the behavioral interview questions well, right? The daily practice is going to build up your skills in interviewing and also has the happy little side effect of knowing your technology well, right? Because that's sometimes, for many of us, can actually being the hardest part, most nerve-wracking when we're talking Zoom interviews.
Right. We want the technology to disappear so that you can concentrate on the interview. And part of that is the familiarity with the technology. Using it every day gives you familiarity.
Exactly. So that said, we want you to be daily practicing out loud on Zoom. Now, what that means is, and if you're familiar with the Zoom tool specifically, or any of the virtual tools, you can start a Zoom meeting with just yourself as an attendee, right? You're the only person on the call, what have you. And if you want, or if you have a family member or a friend who might be available, you could even start a Zoom meeting and have them ask you questions, right? Have them pose questions to you. Now, if they're in your same house, they should be on a different device than you in a different room, right? So you don't get that audio feedback and that echoing, right? But what that allows for is, because these tools like Zoom, for example, allow you to record your meeting so that you have got a video of yourself that you can then analyze after, right? No need to set up a camera for recording. You can watch just the video of the recording, my apologies, of the meeting itself afterward.
And you don't need a paid account for most of these. You can either set up a test meeting, or you can, just on Zoom, you can do a 40-minute meeting. As long as you have an account, you can start a meeting. And, if you want to go longer than 40 minutes, then you can just start another one. I wouldn't suggest practicing for more than
40 at a time.
An hour a day. Yeah, it's hard work, and you probably are not going to get a lot out of it. You can't cram for it. It's like school exams, right? You can't learn everything the night before.
Right.
You would be better to do 5 days of a half an hour than you would be doing 2 days of an hour and a half, 2 hours and a half. I can't work out the math of that. But it's better to do little and often than it is to do one big clump.
Right.
And it's really interesting recording yourself. We have a sound engineer, Paul, who makes us sound awesome.
Yay,
and
Paul.
Cuts out all of the ums and ahs. But I know that I are a lot. And I only know that because I have someone who listens to me.
Yes,
regularly at
exactly.
Toastmasters and tells me. And you don't hear yourself doing those things. You don't hear your own verbal tics. You don't notice that you fiddle with your hair. You don't notice what you do with your hands until you see it. And or someone else points it out for you. So the recording is usually a little bit not nice to watch. It's like most of us who record podcasts don't listen to ourselves on a podcast.
On purpose.
Because we sound weird.
Yeah,
we don't
exactly.
sound like ourselves. But it doesn't matter, because what the interviewer sees is the outside. They're going to see the other side of it. And so you want to be able to see what the other side of it is. So you see what you do and try and stop doing those things.
Exactly. Absolutely. And guys, we want this to be, these Zoom practices, as I'm going to say, realistic as possible, which means starting with things like using the headset that you're going to use during the actual interview. So, for example, you want to use that headset so that you know how loudly to speak, right? Because the volume of your recipient is definitely going to be partially based on the headset, right? How good that microphone is that's in the headset or the earbuds, what have you, that you're wearing.
Because we do Zoom a lot of work, when I'm on my Toastmasters thing and I'm just an attendee, I'm not presenting.
Yeah.
I use my Apple earbuds, which are not as good as my desk computer headset, the one I use for work. But after being on Zoom all day, I have to be somewhere else in the house, and the earbuds work. But I've discovered my earbuds only last an hour, and our meeting is an hour and 15 minutes. So I always start to run out of battery. Now, if I was practicing for an interview, I'd have discovered that my earbuds don't last long enough for me to do that, and I need to do something else. So there's another good reason for practicing with the equipment that you actually are going to use, because you discover things like that.
Absolutely. Practicing also out loud allows you to help find words, that word finding. What is the word I want to say? What is the word I want to use here? So that you're developing through repeated practice better and different ways of expressing yourself.
Yeah, there's always words that you can't say. Like last night I was trying to say camaraderie.
Camaraderie?
Yeah, I still do. See, still can't say it. So if I'd have had that in my imaginary answer, I need to change the word because I can't say it.
Right? I know, like just the word finding abilities. I oftentimes say, I am not a really good mental thesaurus. Mm-hmm. I know there's a word there, but what is that word? And it takes me a little while to think about it. So there's that. Additionally, guys, practicing on Zoom, it helps you get used to the idea of seeing yourself. Many of us hate that, right? When
Yeah.
you're on a Zoom call and you can see your own face on the screen, it's distracting. However, practicing will get you over that or make you used to seeing yourself a few times on Zoom, what have you, so that it doesn't actually bother you when it's important in the interview.
Yeah, it's the benefit of the fact that your brain filters out things it already knows.
Yeah.
If you've seen yourself a bunch of times, your brain will filter out, which is awesome. So the next thing is to practice both the words and the behaviors. So what we don't want you to practice is just practice the answers to the questions without all of the stuff that goes around it, right? If you're just practicing the answers, but you're not practicing making eye contact and sitting up and conveying energy and tidying your space and smiling and all of the other things that we're going to talk about later, if you don't practice all of that stuff, that will consume your mind when you're in the interview instead of thinking about what's happening in the interview. So practice all of that stuff. And it is absolutely possible to practice smiling, to remind yourself, like to have, when you're practicing, a Post-it note that says smile. And if you tell yourself, I'm going to smile at the beginning of a sentence and I'm going to smile at the end of a sentence or a paragraph, and you do that enough, your brain will start just smiling automatically. It's weird, but it absolutely happens. So you can practice all that stuff and it will come more naturally over time. So you want to give yourself the time for it to come naturally.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I always tell myself I'll be better prepared for Christmas this year. If you're the prepared type, or if you're wanting to be more prepared, I've got a gift idea for you. The Effective Manager or the Effective Hiring Manager book. A classic Christmas gift for someone you love and useful too. Find out more by going to managertools.com and look for products in the menu.
Next up then we have is analyzing the recordings, right, which we kind of talked about, we alluded to. So when you're practicing in the morning, for example, you want to review your recordings that night or that evening, or alternately, when you're practicing in the evening or at night, we'd have you then review them in the morning. Because the thing is, guys, we all sound really good when we review the recordings immediately after we recorded them. Because it's fresh in our mind, right? Like, oh, I know exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, all the things we think we were saying that we weren't saying out loud. Yeah.
It's still so fresh. You're like, oh no, I know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's like reading your own writing straight after you've written it. You read in all the words that you didn't type.
Exactly. Absolutely. So you want to give it some time. A little bit of a delay allows you to forget all of the intricate details your brain was thinking. And it just gives you the distance to be impartial, right? You can ask whomever was recording with you, right? If you had that friend or family member who was asking the questions, for them to review the recording as well, or review it with you to get their impressions as well, right? Because it might even look different to them in recording than it felt in real life.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it can be simple things like you don't have enough light for me to be able to see your face, right? We're not asking them to critique necessarily the content of your answers or the quality of your answers. What you want is, did you smile? Were you sitting up? Did you have energy? Was there enough light? Could I hear you? All of the really basic things. And then you decide what you want to focus on and you think about that the next session. And if you're a licensee, we've made a checklist so that you can read the checklist and check off the things so it says to analyze your recording. So it says, did you smile? Did you have enough light on your face? All of the things that you would want to check, these things we're talking about is on a nice 2-page checklist, so you can just check them off.
Yes, absolutely. All right. And then the last piece of the preparation, guys, is going to be, don't forget to prepare your questions as well, right? There's almost certainly going to be time for you to ask your questions at the end, just as there would be in person, right? They turn the mic over to you. All right, so what are your questions for us? So you want to not only prepare your questions, however, we additionally, while you're doing your Zoom video practice, we'd have you practice asking them as well.
Because they contain those words that you trip over.
Yes, exactly.
Or maybe the question doesn't make sense. Maybe it makes sense to you, but it doesn't. Or there's a simpler way to ask it, and somebody else will point that out.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So the next part is doing the Zoom or video specific preparation. So normally you would think about, what am I going to wear, and how's my hair going to be, and what time am I going to arrive, and what am I taking with me, and all of that stuff. But we're going to translate that into the video world. You need to think about everything that the interviewer can see and hear while you're interviewing.
Absolutely. And that's starting with your attire, right? What you wear. Now, you want to, guys, to be clear, it's important that you wear your interview attire, right? Your chosen interview outfit during the recorded practices. So we'd have you, in advance of even doing your video practices, choose your outfit and decide all of the accessories, everything that goes with it, including your shoes, that you're planning on wearing for the actual interview. And then when you have your recording of that Zoom interview, we'd have you review it or obviously watch the recording and check that it visually was appealing, right? Like things like make sure that the colors are appropriate, that aren't strange, that they project the image you're looking to project. Things like, ladies, don't forget that some of our tops that we wear can be like the lower cut in the front. So in your video, make sure that you lean ahead on your desk, for example, and put your elbows down so that we know whether or not it's too low cut or if you remain covered up, right? Because cameras, especially with Zoom, the camera's a little bit higher than we are generally. So it has got a bit of a downward trajectory, although we would recommend it's as straight on as possible. Still, it doesn't necessarily prevent the fact that it might be a little low cut.
Yeah, something that you think is perfectly reasonable. If you lean forward and the camera's at the wrong angle, it just... And sometimes it's not even that it shows anything, but it could be that it looks like it's showing something, depending on the color of the top. Sometimes they look a bit more nude than they are. So you just want to check and make sure that you're as covered up as you want to be. If you wear a dark suit and a white shirt, which is what we recommend elsewhere for interview attire, it shouldn't present any problems, but you just want to check to make sure that in your room, the light is such that it looks like you're wearing a dark suit and a white shirt. In certain lights, white looks kind of creamy and maybe it would look dirty even though it's not, right? So you just want to check that. And you definitely, if you're wearing stripes or checks, you want to check that comes across on the camera because they can look kind of fuzzy and a bit weird. And sometimes the color of what you're wearing against the background can look strange. So you want to check all of those things just to make sure that the interviewer isn't spending the time during the interview thinking, I wonder if she washed that shirt, or that's giving me eye strain against that background, whatever. So you just don't want them to be distracted. You want them to be listening to you.
Yeah, I might even suggest, just because we do a lot of virtual presenting now, and me and Kate, who do this all the time, talk about this constantly. We don't have nearly enough patternless shirts. A solid one-colored outfit is really best. And actually, if you have that friend or that family member on the camera on the other side, if you do think that you've got a patterned shirt that might work, I would just suggest that you have them look at the screen and you just shift back and forth because it makes people seasick. Patterns generally make people seasick on video. They do. They're weird. They don't show up right. I only wear solid color for presenting because it's distracting and we don't want your attire to distract from your message.
And the way you wear your hair also is different on video because, and apart from anything, you've got to take account of the headset. But sometimes you look like a bald egg when you've got your hair back, where you might normally wear it back in an interview. You might not want to do that for a video interview, so you look like you've got hair.
You've got hair, exactly.
It's really interesting when you start doing all this stuff of just how different what you might wear in real life to what you might wear on video is.
Oh, completely.
Okay, so next up, physical surroundings. This is, I guess, more obvious maybe than the clothes thing, but you must clean and tidy what can be seen on Zoom whilst you're on the call. What you can't do is say, I've got a messy background, so I'm just going to turn on one of those backgrounds and look good. No, the green screen technology is impressive.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good, but it's not that good for you to be able to cover up a messy room with a background.
Right.
It's obvious in most cases that it is a background.
Yes.
Especially if you move. And since we're going to talk about having energy and using your hands and moving around, you are going to move against that background, and it just flutters at the edges and it's obvious. And, even if you got it perfectly, the hiring manager is going to sit there and go, I wonder if that's actually their house with that library behind them. And all the time they're wondering that, they're not thinking about what you're answering. So again, even if it's really good, people start to wonder if it's real. So it has to be real.
Right, exactly. And guys, just generally, we're going to say, think about the message that you're sending with your background. That is, what might the interviewer think? So for example, if you had a bed behind you and it was made up, it was tidy, it might still not be appropriate for an interview, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not dirty. It's not messy, but do you want a bed in the background? That's kind of weird. A blank wall might be better for that kind of thing. Right? Just keep that in mind, like a wall close to you.
Right. If you turn the video around, you probably only need like 1.5 meters, like, what's that, 5 feet of blank wall.
Yeah.
And that would be better than being able to see a bedroom behind you.
Exactly.
And it's not the end of the world. If you're an entry level, if you're interviewing for entry level roles or the first or the second job, and you live in a studio apartment in New York, like, everybody's going to be the same. We're all going to be, we're going to see their bedroom, their bathroom, and their kitchen in an apartment in New York. But if you can, and if you've got enough space that you can just have a blank wall against you, behind you, then do that. So next one is use a straight back chair rather than a loungy one. Yeah. So we want you to sit up and look energetic.
Right.
And part of that is having a chair that supports you in that. A lot of the time, if you have an office chair at home, it may be one that sort of leans back.
Mm-hmm.
Recline. Thank you. See, this is why you practice. And especially if you use that chair a lot, if this is the chair that you work in and you tend to be the kind of person who reclines while they're thinking, you might be tempted to do that in the interview. So you could just swap the chair out and put a dining room chair in, or you can just alter the chair so that it leans back. The recline is kind of minimal so that you're not tempted to do that. Because the moment that you lean back, first of all, you don't look like you've got any energy. You look like you're sleeping. And second of all, the angle of the camera changes relative to your face. And all of a sudden, the interviewer has a very different picture than the one that you've been practicing.
Yes, exactly.
You want to make sure that that picture stays the same as much as possible. And so a straight back chair can help you sit up and remain sitting up. That's all for this week. We'll catch up with this cast next week.